We're learning the second Sikha on Parshas Kedoshim in Chelek Chav Beis on page 108. The shir today is being learned Lenishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. Nachdem wie die Teire sagt dann dem Din von Orla und Kerem Revai, after the Teire tells us the halacha regarding a vineyard or trees, that for the first 3 years it's called Orla, which means that it's closed, you may not have any benefit or eat from it, and then on the 4th year it has to be brought, the produce has to be brought to Yerushalayim and be eaten there. Steht in Pasuk, the Pasuk continues and says, Bashana Chamishis, in the 5th year, Teichlu es Piryai, you can eat its fruits, Lahaisif Lachem Tuvuasai, to increase your produce, Ani Hashem Alekechem, I am Hashem your God. Is Rashi, Maitik Giverte Lahaisif Lachem Tuvuasai, so Rashi brings the 3 words of the Pasuk, Lahaisif Lachem Tuvuasai, Mefarish, and explains as follows. HaMitzvah Hazais, this mitzvah, shetishmeru, that you will keep, tiya will be lahaisif lachem tvasai, to add or to increase your produce. Shebeschara, as a reward for fulfilling this mitzvah, ani mevarach lachem peiros hanetiyos, I will bless the fruits that come from your plantings. So what's Rashi here clarifying with this pirush? So first the Rabbi brings from what it says in the commentaries, what Rashi is saying here. The Pashtos, Lertman, so simply it's understood as Rashi kommt bavaranen, what Rashi is coming to clarify is as the Werte lahaisef lachem tfuasai, these words that Hashem will increase your produce. Zenenita hemshech davok to vashana chamishis teichlo es piryai. This is not following up and explaining regarding the 5th year when you could eat the fruits. Weil wie passt zu sagen as zelib teichlo es piryai wird sein des Chaf von lahaisef lachem tfuasai. How is it possible to say that the reward comes for the 5th year when you could eat the fruits? So no, rather what Rashi is explaining is, this is davok to the friedige psukim. This is connected to the mitzvah that it says in the earlier psukim, where it speaks about keeping the mitzvah of the tree for the first 3 and then 4th year. That ha-mitzvah hazayis shetishmeru, this mitzvah of the 3 years and then the 4th year that you will keep, tia lohaisav cholo. This will be that it will bring about the reward that you'll have more produce, more fruits in the 5th year. That's what Rashi is clarifying here. However, the Rebbe says that this is not enough of an explanation for what Rashi is saying. This is aber nicht verstandig, der Arichas HaLashon in Pirush Rashi. The first thing we see here is that there is a lengthy expression that Rashi is saying here that's not necessary. Seemingly Rashi should say very concisely, Al derech vi de Even Ezra, similar to the language of the Even Ezra here, as lahaisif lachem tvasai, when it says these words that Hashem will increase your produce, is davak im kodesh yilulim. This is connected to the mitzvah that it says before, the 3 years and then the 4th year when it's holy and you bring it to Yerushalayim. Or something similar. This would be enough for Rashi to clarify this. Other, the in Rashbam, or alternatively, like the Rashbam says, lahaisif lachem tvasai, lekach tisku im tasu kasher tzivisi. This is what you will merit to if you will fulfill what I have commanded. And it would be clear that it's going back to the mitzvah that it says earlier. Why does Rashi say this whole lengthy thing here in the Lashon of Rashi? Mitzvah, Aziz, Shetishmeru, and so on. When I feel as mit ein Teitchen bedoiche Godel, even if you'd want to explain, big squeeze, but you would want to say, as Rashi will euch klar machen, dem Pirish von Lahaisif lachem tvasai, Rashi also wants to clarify the simple meaning of what it means when it says that Hashem will increase your produce, as this meant that it means that b'schara ani mevarach lachem peiros hanetiyos, that as a reward for this mitzvah, Hashem blesses the fruits. Hat Rashi gekent sagen bekitzer, but yet again Rashi could still say much more concisely, lahaisif lachem tvasai, which means b'schar ha-mitzvah azais, as a reward for this mitzvah, ani mevarach lachem peiros hanetiyos, I will bless for you the fruits that are planted. That's it. It's not necessary for Rashi to say the whole arichas in his lashon. That's the first point here. You see that there's something extra in the whole flow of the language of Rashi, and therefore Rashi must be addressing something else here. Additionally, there are other points that we see here in the language of Rashi, umehem. And from them is as follows. Aleph, number 1, Rashi emphasizes ha-mitzvah hazais shetishmeru chulu. This mitzvah that you will keep. Was is the asafa sadiyek hazais? Why is Rashi adding that word that it's this mitzvah? As Rashi would gesagt, geshetishmeru ha-mitzvah v'chayetze v'zeh on the adgasha hazais. If Rashi would simply say, when you keep the mitzvah, without emphasizing this one, Wat man euch gewusst, als es redt sich wegen der Mitzvah. Was wegen hier redt der Pasuk. It would be clear that we're speaking about the mitzvah that this Pasuk here speaks about. Bay is another thing in the language of Rashi. Ani mevarach lachem peiros hanetiyos. I will bench for you the fruits of your plantings. Was is Rashi mishane from lashon haPasuk to vasei? Why is Rashi switching from the expression that it says in the Pasuk to vasei, your produce or your grain? Why is Rashi using the term? We're not really talking about grain, we're talking about a vineyard or about the tree, as the Rabbi here will not clarify, but Rashi is switching from the lashon of the Pasuk. So as the Rabbi explains, even if Rashi wants to clarify, as the taich from Tvua da is nitvus asada, that the expression of the pasuk where it says tvua does not mean grain in a field, not nitiyas sakerem. Rather, it's talking about the plantings of a vineyard. As it says in the beginning of this whole parsha regarding Arla and Eterevai, when tatem koletz machel, you plant a tree for fruits. But Rashi could have just said simply that I will bench your fruits, or the ranatiyas, or I'll bench your plantings, referring to the trees. Thus is the kefil haloshin. Why is Rashi saying this double expression? Peiros hanatiyas, the fruits of the plantings. Now Rashi doesn't stop here. Weiter is Rashi mamshech. Then Rashi continues and says, Rabbi Kiva would say, Dibra Torah keneged Yetzirah. The Torah here is speaking against the inclination of the Yetzirah. A person shouldn't say to himself, look, 4 years, I plant a tree, I'm working so hard on the tree, on the vineyard, in 4 years it's all for nothing. I can't have any benefit from it. Therefore, the Torah here says, it comes the 5th year, as a reward for fulfilling and keeping this mitzvah, Hashem will increase the produce that you have. So the question is, why does Rashi find it necessary to quote the statement that Rabbi Kiva said about this? So the commentaries explain, as the mit for Rashi, with this Rashi explains, why does the schar come here in the Torah after it speaks about the 5th year? Why doesn't the schar say in the Torah there, where it speaks about the actual mitzvah of not eating for 3 years and then eating the 4th year in Yerushalayim, there the Torah should say the schar. Bringt Rashi, Rabbi Kiva. So Rashi brings the statement of Rabbi Kiva, as the schar kumt tefar was arba shonim ani mitzdar bechinam, that yes, in fact, the schar is for the fact that 4 years a person says that I worked so hard for nothing. Was der Adam halt sich ab von essen die Peres bis shana chamishis. He's holding back from eating these fruits until the 4th year. And therefore the way to read the pasuk is v'hachi ka'amar. This is what the pasuk is saying. Masha techluhu b'chamishis bilvad. What you eat in the 5th year alone, because you didn't eat previously, v'lo yichulu yeh lo haisif. What you eat, if you're going to eat from this year alone and not from earlier, then this will be the reason why it will increase your tvur. So that's why the Torah is saying it here, to let you know that this is the place and the time when the schar will actually be granted to you, even though the cause of the schar is actually earlier. So Rashi is clarifying why the Torah is writing it here and not earlier. Aber der Pirish is nit glatik. This explanation that this is Rashi's intention is not smoothly understood. Weil das, was the schar mitzvah steht nit frier, the fact that the reward for this mitzvah is not written earlier in the pasuk, is mlechatchila ken shailanit in pshuta shel mikra. In the first place, is not a question in the simple pshat of when you read the pasuk. V'derech klal, because generally, dort v'seret gesagt in Torah, des schar ha-mitzvah, steht es b'siyam minyan. When the Torah says the reward for any mitzvah, where does the Torah mention the reward? At the conclusion of the mitzvah or of the subject. So val derech zeh ben yaneinu, similar here, Frier verendigt the Torah alle prati mitzvah. First, the Torah concludes with all details of this mitzvah. Vida Adam darf sich führen mit seinen Peiros. How a person should conduct himself with his fruits. What does he do in the first year? As the Rabbi quotes here, Shal Shanim la ya'achal. 3 years you don't eat. Ubeshana Revi'as yeh kapir yakedesh. In the 4th year, all the fruits are holy and are to be taken to the Yerushalayim. Und as dafke nachdem, ubeshana chamishis, megzai teichles period. Then the Torah concludes and says that it's the 5th year when you're allowed to eat from the fruits. Und erst danach wird angesagt schar ha-mitzvah, and only following all of the details of the mitzvah, does the Torah conclude with the reward for the mitzvah. Was der Eibishter wird der Far given after the Torah clarifies what the person has to do and know about his tree. Now it tells you the reward that Hashem provides, which is l'haisav l'chem tvasei. So that's very simple and clear in the flow of the psukim. The fact that the tzchar comes here is not a question. So why is Rashi bringing here the statement of Rabbi Akiva? Additionally, we need to explain what Rashi brings the meaning Rashi brings what Rabbi Akiva said, bringing him with his name. Was wie gerat vielmal, as already explained many times, Rashi tut es nur dort, wo das is meisif and avanas apirish. Rashi quotes the name of the one that says this pirish only if it adds to the understanding of what he's saying. Furthermore, in our case, in them guf is Rashi medayik hoya Rabbi Akiva omer, that this is something that Rabbi Akiva was accustomed to saying. As Rabbi Akiva vielleicht ständig sagen dem Maimer, Rabbi Akiva would constantly say this statement regarding this mitzvah. What does this emphasis add to understanding here the point that Rashi is making with the statement of Rabbi Akiva? Now, in the Maimer Gufe, taking a deeper look into the actual statement that Rabbi Akiva says, was Rashi bringt from Rabbi Akiva, is nicht verstandig, so it's not understood as follows. As in da kama v'kama mitzvahs, there are many mitzvahs, by welche Torah sagt dann dem schare mitzvah, where the Torah itself tells you what the reward for the mitzvah is. And Rashi is by nit mefarish, and there Rashi does not explain as a tam was Torah is maftiach schara mitzvah. Why is the Torah promising reward for this mitzvah? Is keneged yetzer hara, in order to fight the evil thoughts of the yetzer hara. Hainu meaning as luli dem schar, but the yetzer hara net lazen bekayim in the mitzvah. If not for the fact that you're being promised a reward, the yetzer hara would be strong enough to prevent you of doing this mitzvah. Rashi never says that. From varet is the hechrich. So from where are we forced to say, as dafke der schar, that here this reward is anders von an ander schar mitzvah, is different than other rewards of a mitzvah, und is gesagt geworden, keneged yetzer hara, and is being said here specifically as a reward to fight with the thoughts of the yetzer hara. Und nicht weil es kommt dem Adam, dem schar, wie bald sich mit star gewen, chinam dalet shonim, and not simply that he deserves to be rewarded for the fact that he plants a tree and he has to wait now 4 years until he can eat from it. Now, it is understood where Rashi brings a similar subject that the Torah says something which is against the yetzer hara in another case. By the parsha from Yefas Toya, in the parsha where the Torah talks about when you go out in war and you see a non-Jewish beautiful woman, and there the Torah allows to have a relation with her, and is move on. There Rashi says you take her as a wife, as that the Torah is allowing this only to fight the yetzer hara. While Rashi is mevayer, because as Rashi explains there, in Ena Kadosh Baruch Hu matira yisena b'Oster, because if Hashem will not permit this, then the temptation is too strong, and he will marry her even if it's forbidden. So over there, it's understood why Rashi is saying that this is something specific to fight the yetzer hara. Das says because over there, what this means is as be'etzem woltes gedarft sein ad Oster, that really this should be something which is forbidden. Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu matira, there's a special permission given here, a special heter for this. So it's very clear from the fact that there's a unique heter granted that this is only being said because of the yetzer hara in this case. That's there. However, bechlal is inyan schar for a mitzvah, but in a general regarding any reward of a mitzvah, gefindment meferish and Torah by kama v'kama mitzvahs kanal. We find it by many mitzvahs where the Torah promises the reward. Das ist ein Yesod b'negayet zum mitzvahs, as the Eibusher gets schar mitzvahs. In general, this is one of the fundamentals regarding mitzvahs that Hashem rewards for the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Is for was is ausgeteilt, der schar for the mitzvah von Orla und Kerem Revai, as dafke is gesagt geworden keneged yetzer hara. So how is this schar of this mitzvah different than the schar of any other mitzvah? There here we say that you're being given this schar because Hashem is speaking against the yetzer hara. Now there's another Rashi here. In the next words of the pasuk, weiter stellt sich Rashi of the Verta Ani Hashem. When the pasuk concludes, I am Hashem, and is mefarish, what is the pasuk here saying with this? Ani Hashem amaftiach al kach. I am Hashem that promises for this. V'neman lishmar avtachasi, and I am believed to keep my promise. That's why the pasuk adds Ani Hashem. So as nit move on, it's not understood. Why is Rashi explaining Ani Hashem this way? The lashon haragol b'pirish Rashi b'kagoinda is b'kitzer neman l'shalim schar. Usually, when Rashi explains Ani Hashem, Rashi just says concisely, I am Hashem that will give reward. Why is here Rashi saying a lengthier idea that Ani Hashem hamaftiach al kach and v'nemel nishmar avtachasi, I promise and I'm trusted to keep my promise. Furthermore, the question here is, it's not only a lengthier language, but it's actually really a different point. Rashi is not saying that Hashem is trusted for the reward. The focus here is that Hashem is saying, I am believed with my promise. Why is Rashi changing over here the focus, not the schar, but the promise? Additionally, Rashi is mishane euch von sein friedigen Lashon b'inyanenu shebeschara ani mevaracholu. Rashi is switching from the very same language from a different language that Rashi used earlier here in our subject, where Rashi says that as a reward for the fulfillment of this mitzvah, I will bench you. Und sagt an von Avtache. And here Rashi brings up that it's not just simply a reward, but this is a promise. Hamaftiach, Hashem promises, Lishma Avtachasi, I will keep my promise. Why is Rashi bringing up the fact that this reward is a promise? Okay, so we have many questions here on the Rashis in this pasuk here regarding the schar of Lahisaf Lachem Tfuasai. What's Rashi saying with this? And Rashi very uncharacteristically brings the story or the statement of Rabbi Kiva that the person has tsar and the Torah speaks against the Yetzer Hara. What does Rashi want with all of this? So here the Rebbe will explain us a whole new approach and understanding what's unique about the schar in this pasuk. So the explanation we can say here is as follows. The question in this pasuk that Rashi here is coming to answer with his commentary is it's not where the schar is written in the pasuk here that it comes at the end. In the simple pshat of the pasuk, this is not a question at all. After the Torah concludes the details, it says the schar. No, rather, what's Rashi's question in the Pirish HaTevis, in the actual meaning of these words itself? What's the question? If the Torah's intention was simply to let you know what the reward for this mitzvah is, so then it should say, similar to what it says in other places, so that Hashem will increase your produce. Laman, that's the usual expression, that Hashem will then come and add. I will increase your produce. Something similar. When it says this expression that you're going to eat in the 5th year, in order to add or to increase your produce. So what this indicates is, as das is der mechuvin und tachlis von der mitzvah. They were not just simply saying what Hashem will come and give you as a reward, but it's actually saying that this is the purpose and the whole entire goal of the mitzvah. 3 years do not eat from this tree. In the 4th year it's holy to be brought to Yerushalayim. And then all of this is kidei, the le is like in order that that I will then increase your produce. That's what the term lamed means. An example for this, when the Torah says, remember the day of Shabbos in order to sanctify it. When it says it in order to sanctify Shabbos, it's not a reward. Rather, it's the purpose and goal of remembering Shabbos. So here as well, means you're fulfilling this mitzvah in order to increase your produce. So now the phone is Rashi Machriach. So from this is what Rashi is proving and says we must say, as the pshat and pasuk is, that here the meaning of this pasuk is mitzvah hazois shetishmeru. This mitzvah is different than other mitzvahs. So this mitzvah that you keep, tiyeh lohisev lachem tuase, will be with the purpose to increase your produce. So the chiddush is as follows: Chotch as bechlal davon mekayim zen a mitzvah dafar v'sazeh to'ebishte geheißen. That even though in general one must fulfill a mitzvah because Hashem commanded to fulfill. Aber by der mitzvah sagt Torah, regarding this mitzvah the Torah says, as ihr shmire is, or megzai melachatchila mit the kavana lo'isav lachem tuasai. Here the Torah says one could fulfill the mitzvah and his intention from the beginning is with the purpose in order to then get the reward to increase the tfuah. That's what the pasuk means by saying the schar in this way with the word lehoisif and not leman hoisif or ve'oisif. It's saying that this is how you should or can fulfill the mitzvah in order to add to your tefillah. And das is was Rashi is meirich b'l'shoine. And that's the lengthy expression that Rashi says. Die Werte lehoisif lechem tevasai sind nicht kein Ansag auf dem schara mitzvah. When it says in the pasuk lehoisif lechem tevasai, it's not just simply telling you, letting you know what the reward of the mitzvah is. No, the Torah reta be'iker wegen kavanas ha'adam. Primarily, the Torah here is coming to tell you about the person's intention in doing the mitzvah. As a tut the mitzvah kedei lehoisif lechem tevasai. That this is a mitzvah that the person fulfills in order to increase his produce. So kumtais, Nasanat comes out as in Pirish Rashi, Vernares gebracht zwei inyanim. That there are really 2 points that are being expressed here in the words of Rashi. Aleph, the Pirish von Loisav Lechem Tvuasai, the simple pshat, the meaning of what these words is coming to say, as das Retzich wegen Kavanas Adam. The Torah is focusing on the intention of the person. Ha-mitzvah azayis shet tishmeru, that this mitzvah, Rashi emphasizes this mitzvah is unique. You fulfill it, that is, with the intention to get the schar. Beis, another point, the tam, then Rashi explains how actually could a person have this in mind, that by fulfilling this mitzvah, it will increase his produce. Will that actually happen? So Rashi clarifies, yes, because here Hashem specifically said that in this mitzvah, this will actually happen. As a reward for this mitzvah, I will bench for you the fruits of the plantings. That's the pshat in Rashi. So this is a unique idea that we find only by this mitzvah, that the Torah is clearly telling you, fulfill the mitzvah, you may fulfill the mitzvah with that intention to receive this reward of l'haisav l'chem tevasai. So now based on this, we could also understand why Rashi uses the expression of peiris and atiyas. Because now the question comes up, wenn loisav lechem tevasai volt gemeint dem Ansag auf schar mitzvah, if the words loisav lechem tevasai was simply letting you know what the reward for this mitzvah is, so then there's no question why the reward comes at the conclusion of the whole subject. As explained before, that's usual in the Torah. But since Rashi explained that l'haisav lechem tevasai is actually coming to clarify that the person fulfilling the mitzvah, when he comes to fulfill the mitzvah, he may do it with the intention, with the motivation, in order to get more tvua for fulfilling the mitzvah. So then the words l'haisav lechem tevasai should be said earlier, where the Torah speaks about the details of keeping the mitzvah. Lo ya'achol, not to eat in 3 years. And there it should say, when you're not eating for 3 years, mita kavana, lo yisav lechem tevasai, that you may have the intention that it's all to add for your produce. So now the question actually comes up that the words lo yisav lechem tevasai should have been written earlier. Rashi, so that's why here Rashi clarifies, durch dem, was there is meshana von loshen hakostuv tevasai, und sagt peiris and atiyas. So Rashi switches from the expression of the pasuk where it says tevasai and instead says the words peiris and atiyas, the fruits of the plantings. Durchstellen die Werte l'haisav lechem tevasai noch ubashana chamishis gaimer. What Rashi is telling us with this is as follows: by the fact that the Torah chooses to put l'haisav lechem tevasai, the reward, after it speaks about the produce of the 5th year, will the pasuk andeuten auf an Eufen habrache. With this, the pasuk wants to hint to you or let you know how exactly this bracha is going to happen. The pshat in l'haisav lechem tevasai, and what the pasuk is clarifying here is that when it says that Hashem will add to your produce, is nit nur as the Eibusher wird geben a teisves bracha in the tzmiche wuchs und die peiris. The bracha is not only the fact that Hashem will give an extra blessing into the growth of the fruits, the growth of the trees. Not as euch, noch, then wie es wollen auswachsen, die Peiris and the Tees von Shana Chamishes, but even after you have the fruits of the plantings that are already here and ripe, seien the great zu teuchles perioi, and you have these fruits here ready to eat, that sei gufe chal sein, birchas Hashem ba'ofen shel isofa v'ribui. In these fruits, there will be a special blessing in the quality of these fruits. Ani mevarach lechem, Peiros hanetiyos. That's what Rashi is saying here. The fruits that you have already, that grew already from the plantings, there'll be a special blessing in them. And what kind of a schar is this? We see this in another place. Al derech v'Rashi zokt in Parshas Bahar. This is similar to what Rashi says later in Parshas Bahar. Af b'toicha me'ayim tehei bei bracha. That even this food that you eat in your stomach, there will be a blessing in it, how it will satisfy you. So the same thing here, the bracha here is not only regarding the growth and how it will grow quicker, better, and so on, but also the fruits that you eat, the way it will satisfy you, there'll be a special blessing in the fruits. So that's why the Torah writes Lois of Lechem Tvosei here, when it talks about the 5th year, Bashana Chamishis Toichlu Esperiya, when it speaks about you eating the fruits, because it wants you to understand that the schar consists of the fact, the unique bracha and the actual quality of the fruits itself that you eat. Okay, but now here is the continuation of Rashi, where Rashi brings what Rabbi Kiva says. Why is Rashi bringing now the statement of Rabbi Kiva? So Rashi here has, based on all of this, another 2 questions here that we have to now answer. So now it remains another 2 points that we don't understand here, based on this. Mit was ist die Mitzvah anders von alle anderen Mitzvahs? Why is it that this mitzvah is different than all other mitzvahs? Was dafke bei ihr, that it's only by this mitzvah is Aleph, number 1, Torah sagt dann, as me meglach atchile bekayim zene mitzvah kadei loisav lachem tuasei. The Torah says that you're allowed to go ahead and do the mitzvah with the intention to get this schar. And beis, the schar atzma is andish with the schar from other mitzvahs. And this schar is also very unique, different than the schar of other mitzvahs. And an eifin shaloi be'erech, very unusual, a bracha in Peiris Anatiyas canal, a bracha not only in the growth of the tree, that it will be very good, that it will grow quickly and successfully, but the actual fruits themselves will be of a completely different quality when you eat it. That's a very unique bracha. Why do we find this mitzvah to be so different from other mitzvahs? So therefore, bringt the Rashi the Maimah from Rabbi Kiva. That's why Rashi has to continue and explain the statement of Rabbi Kiva, Dibra Torah keneged Yetzirah. That the Torah is speaking and saying this unique schar and the intention of the person that fulfills the mitzvah. The Torah here is speaking against the Yetzirah. Shalayim Adam Chulu. Which means as follows: This is a mitzvah that's very difficult to fulfill. 4 years I work and I plant and I can't have any benefit of this tree for myself here. Hat men Mathe gemacht, keneged Yetzirah. So it's here that the Eibishter allows something that usually is not. Zu haben in Sinnen dem schara mitzvah beis kiyuma. That here the Torah tells you in the beginning that you are able and could have in mind that you're doing the mitzvah for the reward of this mitzvah. So this is sort of a heter. This is something unusual. By other mitzvahs, the Torah doesn't say, go ahead and do the mitzvah for its schar. The mitzvah should be done for the fulfillment of the will of Hashem. So this is a unique heter. And in order to quiet down and to satisfy the Yetzirah, is the Eibishter maftiach aschar shalei al derech haragel. The Eibishter promises also a reward which is very unusual. The fruits themselves will be of a completely different quality. So now we understand how this case is actually similar to the case of Eishes Yifas Toya, where there's a heter of something that usually is not allowed. Here as well, usually the Torah says a mitzvah should be done for the sake of the mitzvah. Here the Torah is matter and says you can do this mitzvah for the sake of the reward because it knows how difficult this is. That's the meaning of the Dibra Torah Keneged Yetzirah in our case. With this, we could also simply understand. But Rashi is the Noch Mamshech. Rashi continues and says, Ani Hashem, what does it mean? Ani Hashem maftiach al kach. I Hashem promise for this, and v'nem alishma avtochasi. And I'm trusted to keep my promise. Da is nit maspik de zeros nemel l'shalom schar. Reason Rashi doesn't say here that simply like he usually does, that I'm trusted to give you a reward, because this here it's not enough to give you the encouragement that there'll be a reward. Beyond the mitzvahs, as it is by other mitzvahs. Here we're talking about a mitzvah that the person is doing the mitzvah only for this reason because he wants to get this reward. If not for the fact that we would allow him to do the mitzvah with this intention, then the Yetzirah, Eibishter knows, would succeed in preventing a person and stopping him of doing the mitzvah. Nit the lazen zu mekayim and the mitzvah. The Rebbe is the Pirish van Ani Hashem, so therefore over here, what's the meaning of Ani Hashem? Not simply that there's a reward, but Amaftiach hakach, Hashem promises, V'nem l'ishtam avtachasi, and Hashem is trusted to keep his promise. Visinnig, as das is avtacha von Eibishten. when the person here that's doing it from the beginning with this intention to get this reward, and he knows that this is a promise, and Hashem is trusted to keep his promise, that is sufficient, that even the Yetzer Hara will agree to fulfill the mitzvah, because he knows that Hashem's word is a word, and therefore, even though he's losing for 4 years, but nevertheless, I'm doing the mitzvah with that intention that I will have the gain later on, and it's definitely going to come, it's guaranteed. So therefore, that's something that's strong enough that the Yetzer Hara will also agree to the fulfillment of the mitzvah. That's the explanation of the Rashis here. We see here how the Rebbe showed us that there's a unique point about the Lohoisef Lachem Tvasai. It's not just simply a schar, but it's the intention of the person that fulfills the mitzvah, fulfilling it for the purpose of this schar. However, now here the Rebbe will explain why it brings the name Rabbi Akiva. But by a sharp student learning the subject here, it could awaken by him the following question. Wie kommt es, als man so bei der Mitzvah als so viel Mishane sein von alle Mitzvahs? How is it that when it comes to this mitzvah, we change to such an extent from all other mitzvahs, Mathe machen zu abhitten l'shem schar, we allow one to keep the mitzvah for the sake of the reward, und dazu noch maftiach sein as schar bilti tivi v'ragel klal, and additionally to promise a reward which is completely unusual. Und das als, all of this, zu lieb eine, was ist in Azar Shvala Matzev, als der einzige Weg zu peilen auf ihm, ist zu bewahren in Keneged Yetzer Hara. And for who is this? This is all for a person that's on a very low level, that the Yetzer Hara has influence over him, and the only way that he will overcome the Yetzer Hara is if you promise him these things. Sagt Rashi, so therefore, Rashi comes and adds and it says, As das sagt Rabbi Akiva. Who's the one speaking here? This is Rabbi Akiva. There was it gesagt, Ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha ze klal gadol b'Torah. Rabbi Akiva is the one that says that the mitzvah of love your fellow Jew is the greatest klal, it's the greatest mitzvah in the Torah. So Rabbi Akiva is the one that's concerned about every last Jew, that he should be motivated and be interested to do the mitzvah. Additionally, it says about Rabbi Akiva, is Rabbi Akiva given der was hayuragel lezakas es Yisrael. It was customary for him to find merits for Yidden. Und Leut shittas Rabbi Akiva, as gefinnen as chus auf jeden Yidden, und proven him helfen chulu. Now Rabbi Akiva's approach to make an effort to find merits for Yidden and to try to help another Yid is a klal gadol b'Torah. This is the very big basic idea of Torah. Is move on, so it's understood for was Torah vernimmt sich mit jeden Yidden und bewahrend euch azah, was darf umkommen zu divre Torah keneged Yetzer Hara. So therefore, when it comes to this mitzvah, which is a difficult mitzvah to fulfill, the Torah promises this extra reward, allows you to have this intention from the beginning to make sure that the very last Jew will have the motivation to do this mitzvah. The Bai's Rashi Medayik. Now here there's another point, and Rashi is very specific when he quotes the name of Rabbi Akiva. Hoya Rabbi Akiva. This is something that Rabbi Akiva was customary in saying. As a fleck the Maimon noch Hanand Chazar. He was always repeating this point. Was das beweist, dass in der Bavarnish von Dibre Torah keneged Yetzer Hara, that in this point here that Rabbi Akiva said that the Torah speaks against the Yetzer Hara, hat sich Reis gesagt, this expresses a point, was ist b'miyuchad verbunden mit Muhussai und Malasa shel Rabbi Akiva. It's uniquely connected to who Rabbi Akiva was and the level that he was on. Und der Fahr hat dafke Rabbi Akiva gechazet wegen dem größeren Teyeles davon. And therefore Rabbi Akiva constantly repeated the big benefit of this idea here. So where do we see this in the life of Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva, what's the history of Rabbi Akiva's life? Rabbi Akiva hat der erste 40 Jahre von seinem Leben nicht gelernt in Torah. Rabbi Akiva, the first 40 years of his life, was a shepherd and he didn't learn any Torah. Erst dann, wenn man ihm zugesagt schar, wir wird gehen lernen Torah, it was only then when Rabbi Akiva was promised reward to go and learn Torah, is gegangen lernen. He went to learn Torah. So now if you think about this, what happened over here after 40 years of his life not learning Torah? And only then, and only because of reward did he go and learn. So comes out as follows. As by Rabbi Akiva is given ke'en dem matzefon harei arba shana v'ni mitzdar b'chinam. Rabbi Akiva experienced something very similar to what it says here regarding what a person argues regarding this mitzvah, that 4 years I planted a tree and it's for nothing. So similar by Rabbi Akiva, sein gain learning Torah after 40 years, when he made a major life change and he went to learn Torah, is given verbunden mit a wegwarfen die erste 40 Jahre von seinem Leben. What did this demand of him? To throw away 40 years of a life, of his lifestyle. Durch gehen lernen Torah is a madgish as the friedige Jahren sind in mitzvah beginnen. By going to learn Torah, what he's highlighting is that my life up until this point is all worthless. It was wasted time. Very difficult for a person to be ready to do such a thing, to come to the understanding that everything till this point was all wasted. That's one point. And additionally, as gegangen lernen Torah tzali baschar. He only agreed and went to learn Torah because of the reward. And nevertheless, he was successful in his learning with such an unusual, great, tremendous success. All the Mishnayos and everything is all based on Rabbi Akiva's teachings. It's all according to his opinion. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva would be customary for him to say the point here regarding the mitzvah of Arla, is given the matzav mitim, because he experienced a similar thing by him being promised a reward. He began learning and he did succeed, and he came to the level that he was on, being who he was, Rabbi Akiva. That's why Rashi quotes Rabbi Akiva by name, and Rashi tells us that this is something Rabbi Akiva was customary saying. There's something here that's still not smooth when we want to look at this from a deeper perspective, according to Chassidus. Saf, at the end of the day, is the neutigkeit von Divrei Torah keneged Yetzer Hara, the necessity for this, that the Torah speaks against the temptation of the Yetzer Hara that wants to stop you from doing this mitzvah. Blois from Mispar from Yidden. This is for a handful of Jews that are in a very low place that will follow what the Yetzer Hara tells them. Favas is the mitzvah ausgestellt geworden beofen kazeh for all Yidden. But why is it that the Torah is establishing the pasuk that tells us what the mitzvah is and how it's done, and this is for all Yidden? In an Eifen was madgish Divrei Torah keneged Yetzer Hara, the mitzvah is designed in such a fashion, the way the pasuk writes it, that it's to be done in a way that will fight the Yetzer Hara, and this is written in the pasuk for everybody this way. Why is that? Seemingly this is just for people that are on a very low level. Is there beer in them? So the answer here is there's a certain accomplishment over here in the Divrei Torah keneged Yetzer Hara, which is for everybody, not only for the one that's on a very low level. The Pirish HaPnimi, the deeper understanding in Divrei Torah keneged Yetzer Hara, when Rashi tells us that Rabbi Akiva says that the Torah speaks against the Yetzer Hara, is so it's as follows: as the mitzvah is in Yona, this mitzvah is unique. What is the point of this mitzvah? Was Torah will damit ibamachen the Yetzer Hara. The Torah here seeks to reach the thinking and the ideas of the Yetzer Hara and to transform him, to reach him, and to get him to be motivated to do the mitzvah. Like Chazal learn out from this that the pasuk says, that you serve Hashem with all your heart, and it means b'shnei yitzarecha, both with the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. As the Yetzer Hara mitzad atzmoi zol veln tana mitzvah, that the Yetzer Hara, he, on his level, should be motivated to do the mitzvah. Meaning it shouldn't just be the mitzvah that the person does with his Yetzer Tov or his neshama, and the Yetzer Hara is just dragging his feet along. But the Yetzer Hara should see and understand the benefit that's there in it for him on his level. That transforms him, that includes him on the mitzvah on his level. On the far is the schar for the mitzvah lohisav lachem tevasai, and therefore over here the reward for this mitzvah lohisav lachem tevasai, that you do the mitzvah for the purpose that Hashem increases your produce. So here uniquely this expression of this mitzvah of lohisav lachem tevasai, the schar that is, this expresses this idea that we're going to transform the Yetzer Hara himself. Why? When one refines and transforms the Yetzer Hara and the animal soul, this is what actually brings, what the Torah is really saying here is, this brings the true increase into holiness. It's known what it says in Chassidus and Likutei Torah, the meaning of the pasuk where it says in V'rav Tvuis B'koyach Shor, an abundance of wheat that you have is all with the power of the work of the ox. And what this means is, as the V'rav Tvuis, the abundance of wheat, which is Haisafe V'ilui Rav B'kedusha, an increase in a very great level that you come in holiness, where does this come from? B'koyach Shor, from the power of the ox, Tafke, specifically. When you're able to include and elevate even the animal soul to come to serve Hashem, this brings a tremendous Haisafa, a tremendous increase in Kedusha. And that's the point of here of La'isif Lachem Tv'asai. Similar to Rav Tuas B'Koyach Shayr, that the additional power of Kedusha comes from the fact that you're fulfilling the mitzvah in such a manner that the Yetzer Hara is fully involved. He's excited about the mitzvah. The Reif is one of the reasons why this is so. Why, when you do a mitzvah in such a fashion, does it bring such a great addition into Kedusha? Because it's this kind of Aveda which comes with a certain pain and effort and hard work. If it's just a neshama that's serving Hashem, the neshama is waiting and loves and for the opportunity for a mitzvah. It's done with pleasure. But the Aveda from Bir Nefesh Bahamis, if you want to do a mitzvah and you want your Nefesh Bahamis, your animal soul, to be there with you as well and also be motivated to do the mitzvah, Fadit Yigiyeh, this takes effort to durchbrechen dem Helen Vester for Nefesh Bahamis, to break through the stubbornness, the concealment of the Nefesh Bahamis that's selfish. Durch Iskafia, you have to break him and slowly bring the Nefesh Bahamis around to see that it's for his benefit. Und der Rebbe muss früher sein der Tsar von Arba Shonim. And this is also reflected in the nature of this mitzvah of Arla. That you have here the pain and the holding back of eating for 4 years. Was the Nefesh Bahamis hat nicht kein Hanah von der Tvua, where the Nefesh Bahamis does not have any benefit of this produce. Und durch der Eskafje. And then through this, that a person subdues the power of the selfishness of the Nefesh Bahamis, then you come to transform and elevate, that the Nefesh Bahamis comes around to realize that it's only for his benefit. You have the increase in the produce of holiness, which is verav tvuah, the abundance of wheat or produce or grain in holiness, with the power of the fact that the ox of the Nefesh Bahamis is involved in the fulfillment of this mitzvah.